Well, good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. William L. Johnson III, the palliative care chaplain here at Christian Hospital, and I'm so glad to be able to share with you once more for our morning meditation. Welcome indeed. As often as we share in these conversations, one with the other, we are enriched because we are privileged to be able to share at such a time as this. We are aware that these are unprecedented times and there are difficulties at every hand. Many of us are facing them not only at work, but we're facing them in our communities, we're facing them in our faith communities, in our religious organizations, we're facing them in our neighborhood, we're facing them everywhere we turn. And even in our own lives, we are up against it. We find ourselves carrying loads that are really heavy to bear. And it's increasingly important that we share with you that you're not alone, that as much as we are journeying together, it is helpful to know that we're not isolated beings trying to find a way to climb a mountain all by ourselves, or swim in a stream all by ourselves, or try to navigate the wilderness all by ourselves. What's important and imperative for all of us to know is that as we do so, we are better when we do it together. There is strength in numbers, and we're encouraged as we journey along the way, knowing that we're not the only ones that are going through the journey by ourselves. And so we want to make sure we share these words through our morning meditations, and they are to achieve two things. One, to inspire and to encourage. Those two things, to inspire you, and two, to encourage you. As we journey, it is helpful to have someone sing along with us as we walk down the road. One of my favorite movies of all time, not The Wizard of Oz, but The Wiz, that rendition of The Wizard of Oz that starred Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and Ted Ross and Nipsey Russell and so many others who we remember in Sainted Memories. We are aware of that story, and that story had this famous song, "Ease on down the road. Don't you carry nothing that might be a load. Just ease on down the road." And it says, put your left foot up and put your right foot down. You just keep on moving. Don't you lose no ground. And it reminds us that in this life, we are journeying together as we ease on down the road. It doesn't mean that we forget. We will never forget those we love. We will never forget those who have impacted our lives, but we ease on down the road just the same. So, with all of that said, let me get into the morning meditation. I feel good today, as you can imagine. And I want to talk with us about this very thing, two words: loving ourselves. Loving ourselves. One of my favorite writers, and I have a lot of them. Mark Nepo is one. You'll hear me mention him a lot. But before Mark Nepo, one of my favorite writers, among others, like Langston Hughes and others, this one actually impacted my life as well. His name is Parker J. Palmer. Parker J. Palmer. Parker Palmer is one of my favorite writers because he deals with matters of the soul. And that's what I want to talk about today. He wrote a book entitled The Company of Strangers. And in its opening chapter, he talks about how he found himself in a cab on his way through New York City. And the cabbie who was driving him kept engaging. He engaged the cabbie in some conversation, and the cabbie responded. And he asked him how he enjoys what he's doing. And the cab driver said something really interesting. He said, "I love it. I'm well, and I love what I do because it keeps me involved in meeting the public." And so the book is entitled The Company of Strangers because it reminds us that we're always in the process or in the place where we're encountering other people. But for our purposes today, I want to talk about the fact that, yes, public life and encountering other people has us always discovering the multitude of new ideas and new adventures and wonderful experiences with other people. And all of that is weighted. It is really important that we have those experiences in life. But it is also equally important that we keep other experiences as well in the forefront. And one of them happens to be not only our experience or encounter with the holy or with God or whatever you would like to name it in your faith tradition, or if you have one, but for me, in my faith tradition, it's important that I have a relationship with my Creator, with God. And also, that relationship calls me to have a better relationship with other people based on the relationship I have with myself. Yeah, we've heard and we've found ourselves engaging in conversations, lots of psychological studies and conversations and theories about being self-centered and self-conscious and all those self-actualizing and all those things that are focused on the self. But I also want to say to us that those are not negative things necessarily. It's important that we love ourselves, the good, the bad, sometimes even the awful. It is important for us to love ourselves. And I would dare say and argue that we find ourselves in more trouble, not because we have not come to meet new people, and not simply because we don't have a theory or an idea or some theological understanding of who God is or the divine is or who the divine is not in our lives. But more importantly, we really struggle with what's happening in here. In these trying times as they are, and they are indeed trying, they come to test the mettle of who we are in here. In other words, if we are not clear that we love ourselves, we might find ourselves treating other people in a certain kind of way, or even having an idea of God that is toxic and not healthy. In other words, we are all bound together in one string or one stream, if you will, connected together in one flow to know that we are together. So there is this story somewhere in the 22nd chapter of the book of Matthew, where in which there is a discussion. Jesus is out moving among the crowds, and he's tested by a certain sect, a certain group called the Sadducees. And after they present an impossible case, or so they think, to him about what happens, what they do not believe about the resurrection, they talk about this man who, these people that they knew who had a family. There was a man who had a wife, and the rules and the laws of that time would have her to give children to that husband. He dies, and so the next brother is supposed to father husbands, and so on, so father children, and so on and so forth. Throughout all 7 brothers who die and never leave children to this woman. And so the story goes that they asked Jesus, well, whose wife would she be in heaven if there's such a thing as an afterlife? And Jesus says, you just don't really understand. It wouldn't be that way at all. And he explains it. And after the Pharisees, who don't like the Sadducees very much, find out how Jesus handles them, they come with an easier proposition and ask someone, a lawyer asked, well, what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus responds to their question by saying, the great commandment is this: you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and all your strength. And you shall love, that is the first and great commandment, Jesus says. But he attaches something to it. He says, and the second is like unto it: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. It is not only how you love God or have a theory about the divine or your creator, but it's also important how you treat other people and how you attach that treatment of other people to how you feel about yourself, how you love yourself. And if your self-love is unhealthy, then your love with neighbor will be unhealthy, and your love of God will be unhealthy. In other words, what I am trying to communicate is loving ourselves is key. Yes, I have learned and discovered that life can throw everything at us, in our culture especially, to not really love ourselves. If you look differently, you ought not love yourself. If you're tall, if you're short, if your skin is one color, if your hair is a certain type, or if you have no hair, if you come from an economic background that's different from most people or other people, all those things are factors to make us not love ourselves. But the reminder to us is that loving ourselves is not a selfish act, but it is an acknowledgement of the Creator who made us into who we are. So whoever you are, if you look like me, I used to have hair, I don't have it now, and now the hair on my face is now gray turning white. I have to love that. And every gray hair allows me to count the years that I've been blessed to be alive, to love, to laugh, to leave a legacy, to learn so much about others and to have others learn about me. It's important for us to be able to embrace that part of ourselves. And so I share with you, loving yourself is really important. Well, how do we do that? Well, it's important to kind of get a handle on who you are, that we act and behave in different ways in different environments, and all the ways in which we present ourselves. Some of us are husbands, some of us are wives, some are fathers, some are some of us are mothers, some of us are sons, some of us are daughters, some of us are friends, some of us are labor in different capacities, in our professional capacities. Some of us are engaged in activities that no one else would ever want to do. And some of us are prominent in our lives that we're doing things that everybody wants to do or they think they do. And in these lives that we live, as Mark Nepo reminds us, it is the one life we're given. And the only way to embrace that life is to love it. And no matter how it is, no matter what the circumstances around your life are, you're still the person that is not changed. It's still you. You know, I say it now, after 52 summers of life, I am reminded that I am still me. I am still the little boy that used to run around the neighborhood and play by myself sometimes, or hang out with my friends and do silly things. I'm still a little boy that tried to do a backflip and landed on my head and cried. All of those things are a part of who we are. And so I want to share with you that in your life, love yourself. Love yourself today, love yourself from yesterday, love your mistakes, love your victories, love every part about you that makes you you. Because when you do, you learn how to love others, and most importantly, you learn how to love God right. Have a great week and have a great time with this day as you've been given it. Love yourself. It's okay to love yourself and love on yourself, because you're the only one that's been made, the only one like you that will ever be made. So love that person. Even if others don't, you ought to love you just the same. Have a great day and have a great week.